Welcome to the Pet Loss Journals podcast. I am your host Louise. This podcast is all about the reality and impact pet loss has on our lives, and I will be discussing my personal journey through pet loss. So if you are struggling on your own pet loss journey, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to episode 25. Thank you for coming along this journey with me. If you are new to this podcast, I would highly encourage you to go back to episode 1 to hear all about my story, my personal pet loss story, and why I started this podcast. It will really give you a sense of what this is all about. So I do encourage you to go back to episode 1 to have a listen. So this week I will be sharing a journal entry from the 20th of June 2021. And I will jump straight in. I am struggling a lot. I don't seem to be going forward with my healing. The trauma is more real than ever. I think I need to see someone that can help with this PTSD. I want to work on a solution so that I can get back in control of my life. I don't want to push Steve away. I don't want to lose him either. I am being triggered so much more lately, and it's like I'm hypersensitive and on high alert. I just want to look and be around dogs and not see my dead dogs in my head. That's all I want. And I want to stop reliving that awful day. That is the journal entry for today, and it is a very vivid journal entry, and I can feel it. I can feel that emotion. Because that was my reality. I was having those kinds of flashbacks that people kind of sometimes mention about. PTSD is a really difficult situation to be in, to be experiencing. It's horrendous. It's just uncontrollable as well. So I empathise with anybody listening who is experiencing PTSD due to the death of their pet, and it's something that I've never actually heard being spoken about. There's an element of feeling nervous to mention post-traumatic stress disorder and pet loss. I've never heard that being spoken about online, anywhere. I've never read about it anywhere in articles. But I want to speak about it because that's what I went through. And I know that somebody listening to this podcast right now is or has experienced PTSD in relation to the death of their pet. I've no doubt in my mind. I really don't. To talk a little bit about what I was experiencing was because the way my dog Ozzy died, it was a graphic scene, and it was highly distressing to witness that. So, and for a lot of reasons, I'm not going to get into the specific details because it can be extremely triggering for those listening. And I'll just tell you now, there's going to be none of that on this episode, because that can send listeners that have experienced a traumatic death of their pet into a flashback or into being triggered and send them right back to that moment. And that is not something that I'm going to do. And that is not something that I want to do either. So please rest assured that I won't be speaking about any specific details or anything like that. So I hope that puts your mind at ease. But in relation to how I experienced it and my own opinion and description of it was that There were nightmares, but the daytime seemed to be worse for me, where that I would get these emotional kind of flashbacks, and I would get these kind of scene flashbacks in my mind's eye, is the best way I can describe it. I would try to avoid that area where it happened, but if it caught my eye or I was near there, I would just freeze in time and feel numb, and the essence of reality was like I wasn't physically in that space. My heart and my head, my soul had gone to that day, so I was there and I could feel everything again. It was incredibly painful. Sometimes when I experienced these flashbacks or triggers or whatever you would like to call them, I would experience panic attacks soon afterwards. I would feel dissociated from my body. I would feel completely like an out-of-body experience, essentially. So that was something that I felt, and I was really, really concerned that experiencing PTSD would cause me to lose my partner, me to lose my relationship. So that was obviously another stress that I was putting on myself, because I felt out of control. I felt that nobody is going to be able to deal with this. Like, not a new relationship. It's not going to withstand my PTSD and my grief and everything I'm trying to deal with. Of course, that was untrue. Those things that I was telling myself. I was just analysing, overthinking everything in my life, and I didn't want another loss in my life. I felt if I lost my relationship at that stage, I think my brain would go offline. The fear of that was what was driving those negative thoughts. The fear of, if I lose one more thing in my life, I don't know how I will survive. I don't know how I will get through this. I don't know how I will navigate or cope with life, because I've had so much loss after loss after loss that I can't take one more loss. And God, it was so true. Like, I was so scared of that, even though I was getting reassurance. Even like, it didn't seem to make a difference. It wasn't registering. My body was like I say, it's like I'm hypersensitive and on high alert. So my nervous system was through the roof. It was on high alert all of the time, like fight or flight response, whatever way you'd like to describe it. And it's living in that way for a sustained period can have detrimental effects on, physical and mental health. So I spoke a little bit about that last week, but the most obvious part that sticks out for me in this journal entry was the fact that I wanted to be around other dogs and see other dogs in the environment, and not see my dead dogs, the image of them in my head, and not have that constant reminder about what happened. And that was just reading that is absolutely heartbreaking, and I thank God like I don't experience that now, and I've done so much inner work that I don't. But I mean, there's some of you that do experience that are listening, and my heart goes out to you, because I remember how that felt for me, and I felt that, how am I ever going to be around dogs again and not think of the devastation and heartbreak that I went through, and not constantly think of those traumatic events that happened. And my heart goes out to you. You're not alone. There are others that are experiencing this daily. And it's normal to have these thoughts about it. Like, these are genuine fears. These are all of these questions that we have about it, like, you know. So there's not much that I can explain other than that about my experience with PTSD, and I'm not qualified in diagnosing anybody with PTSD or giving advice about PTSD, but I am okay and feel comfortable talking about my own experience of PTSD. If you are feeling that some of those symptoms that I explained and described to you, that you're experiencing them, and you feel that these are really, really overwhelming and impacting your life for some time, I do highly recommend getting in touch with a therapist or a cognitive behaviour therapist or a grief recovery specialist, or anything that will help you to understand and learn what is happening in your brain when these things happen. I did go and see a cognitive behaviour therapist because of this exact, PTSD that I was experiencing. And she really helped me to understand on an educational kind of level and a cognitive level what was happening in my brain chemistry when I was experiencing these episodes, kind of, so that was helpful for me to understand. And I didn't feel like I was going crazy, and I didn't feel that I had to be put on medication to regulate this. There was ways that I could, that I could work on this. And the grief recovery program, the Pet Loss grief recovery program, has so many ways to work through PTSD as well. So when I went to cognitive behaviour therapy, I got huge benefits. And then when I finished with that and I went on and found the grief recovery method and I completed that was like the icing on the cake for me. That's what really, really helped me to, come out of those negative thought patterns, and what really, really decreased my PTSD symptoms and responses to certain triggers and to certain scenarios that I was in the environment and in my life. So that was huge, huge for me. There is lots of people that I speak with, clients and so on, that often say that whether that they're anticipating the death of a pet or they have gone through the death of a pet, and that people that they know, be that colleagues or family or friends or any of these people, that there's so much that people are saying to them that they are asking me, sure, is this true, Louise? Like, is this statement true? And some of that might be, oh, don't feel bad, he's in a better place now, if, that's, for example, or don't feel sad, at least he didn't suffer. It's that term, at least, that is really dismissing and minimizing the amount this relationship, this pet, meant to you is what's really hurtful. And a lot of people are saying as well, oh, it's okay, like you can just go and get another pet, and which I've spoken about before. God, pets should not be replaced. And I know that it's controversial for me to say that, because some people do bring a new pet into their lives really, really soon, after their original pet dies, and that's completely personal and completely unique. But there are so many scenarios where you try to connect with that new pet, and in your mind you're comparing a lot of that relationship with the new pet to the original pet that you had. And sometimes, it will never match up to that bond that you had, Because even if we break up with somebody that we were with in a relationship with for a long, long time, and we automatically get into a new relationship really, really soon after, it's kind of like a knee-jerk reaction that we are nearly unconsciously comparing the new partner to the old partner. And I think comparison is really, really difficult to avoid in life, and we all say to ourselves, oh no, I'm not comparing that relationship to my old one. But I think unconsciously, automatically we do. We may not realise we're doing it as much, but once we kind of bring it to our awareness, we actually figure out that, oh, okay, I am. And sometimes we try to force something that will never be the same as the previous relationship that we have. And while for some people, if they have gone through life with really good grief education, great parents that always spoke about loss and death and supported them through their life, and they processed the loss of their pet in a really healthy way, and they had loads of support around them. And if they brought a pet into their life quite soon after, I'm sure that was the right time for them. But the majority of us have grown up with, caregivers, parents, guardians that have not spoken to us about death or loss, and not offered comfort, or not offered us time for us to speak about, how did this loss make you feel? Is there something I can do to help? Do you have questions about the death? Do you have questions about grief? Is there support provided to us? Many of us, that's a no. Not in schools anyway, and not from caregivers, guardians, parents, and so on. So the majority of us just learn to get on with life, get on with it, suppress it, push it down. I'll deal with that another time. That's too painful for me to think about. I'm going to numb it out. I'm going to block it. I'm going to suppress it. I'm going to pretend like it didn't happen. Some of us. So, these terms are just what's been passed down through generation to generation. I don't think people mean harm by it at all. But the most prevalent one is definitely, you can just get another pet. And I've experienced that, and I think out of everything, that is the most hurtful. Because you feel like screaming at the top of your lungs, have you no idea how much this dog meant to me? This dog was like my child. It's just, I'm passionate about that, and I feel like these people will just never understand. They've never experienced their own intense connection with a pet that they lived with 24/7. So it's really difficult for those people to empathise with us or try to understand any element of what we're going through. I hope that helped a little bit this week, and if you are experiencing PTSD responses or symptoms in relation to the death of your pet, please know that you're not alone. Also, please know that it is normal to experience PTSD. And telling yourself that okay, I am experiencing PTSD, instead of saying to yourself, sure, it couldn't be, sure, it's just the loss of a pet. People at war experience PTSD. No. People can experience PTSD, complex PTSD, where they get emotional flashbacks. And some people experience physical flashbacks as well. So please don't box yourself off and say that that can't be what I'm going through. If anything resonated, reach out for help. Reach out for help in your local community. Reach out to me if you want to pop me an email. just reach out to family, friends, let them know what you're experiencing, let them know that it's a concern to you, and that you need help. Ask for help. Please ask for help, and don't suffer in silence with these symptoms, because it can be debilitating, especially over a long period of time. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this week's episode. Remember, your pet loss grief is real, and it is so valid. Please be gentle on yourself. Until next time, take care.